Hey, good morning everybody. Today we're going to go over my tips for the New York City Marathon. So today we're going to jump right into my tips for the New York City Marathon. For those of you that found this video just looking for some tips around the marathon itself, generally this is a vlog for me that I use to share my running content, mountains, views, races, all that stuff, racing tips, gear reviews. So if you're interested, definitely subscribe down below. But like I said, we'll jump right into the tips for today. Tip number one is actually going to be to book your dinner reservation the day before your race, so Saturday night, right now. I cannot be more clear that the Italian restaurants in particular fill up very quickly as you get about a week out from race day. Most of the online reservation systems and things are well within a window now where you can make a reservation for that Saturday night, and I highly recommend you do so early. Otherwise, you're going to have a really hard time, especially around Midtown, the finish line of the marathon, that area where people are generally staying and coming in large groups from outside of New York City. Those reservations are going to fill up very quickly, and you may be stuck eating something that you didn't really expect. So again, just be aware that those reservations are going to fill up very quickly, so make your reservations right now if you can. The next tip is going to be around the New York City Marathon Expo. You should have received an email explaining that you're going to book a time for the expo itself where you're going to go and pick up your race bib, other race materials, all the other vendors and things, the typical things that happen at an expo. The expo is a little bit out of the way from most of the other things in Midtown, so my tip for you is to make that expo reservation as early as possible. That applies to both the earliest day that you can go, if you get there on a Thursday or Friday, as well as the earliest time slot of the day, because it tends to get more and more crowded as the day goes on. The last thing you want to do is spend a lot of time on a Saturday walking around on your legs to get to the expo, spending a lot of time standing because the expo is very busy and you're waiting for your bib pickup or your t-shirt pickup, whatever it might be. Your best case scenario is going to be to get there early and earlier in the week. That way you have more time to stay off of your legs on Saturday itself. All right, so we're up to tip number 3, and tip number 3 is about balancing your expectations on race day versus your expectations of doing things in and around the city on the days before the marathon. Let me explain. New York City is a huge marathon, as I'm sure you know since you signed up for it. There's a lot of different things going on, like the typical sightseeing tours, sightseeing observation decks around the city, shakeout runs from large groups, popular YouTubers, that sort of thing. That said, it's going to require a lot of travel to get around to all these different activities. I always recommend doing any kind of sightseeing or observation decks like One World Trade or the Empire State Building in the days after the marathon if possible. Now, if you're only going to be here before the marathon and pretty much right after the race you're going home, just again balance those expectations. There's a lot of lines for those types of sightseeing tours, those types of observation decks, and you're going to spend a lot of time on your feet, which may impede your potential to do your best on race day if you're spending a lot of time on your feet and standing in the days prior. So just balance those expectations around having fun around the marathon, and then maybe putting some more weight into dedicating your time to preparing for the race itself. So you just have to have a balance. Is it a fun race? You want to do all the stuff around New York City, or are you really looking to do your best in New York City, and you may need to forego some of those other activities that are tempting but are going to again take away from your rest and relaxation before race day. Just balance out what you want to do in New York when you get here. My tip number 4 covers a few different things, but really the main point is don't be afraid to get to the marathon itself early. Now, you should have also received emails with the expo with your transportation options for getting to the start line. Unlike a lot of different marathons that are out there that may be more convenient, this race really has quite a distance between the start line and the finish line, and a fairly limited number of ways to get yourself to that starting line. So part 1 of this tip is really to use the transportation options from New York Roadrunners. As it is, they can take 1 hour, 2 hours to get to Staten Island from either the Midtown bus or from the Staten Island ferry dock. That's a lot of time. So plan ahead, make sure you're, getting on an early enough bus or an early enough ferry where you're really going to have plenty of time to get stuck in traffic. I've had issues myself where they unloaded us pretty far from the starting line just because, again, of congestion, and we had to walk a ways to the start village. Don't let that bother you. Don't let it disturb you. Give yourself plenty of time where, again, I've shown up 2 hours before the start time that I need to be at the actual, starting line itself. And I just spent time in the starting village. There are a few things to do and see. Obviously, porta potties and bathrooms you may need to use. There's some Dunkin' Donuts coffee, and I think breakfast bagels and things like that if you want to eat something else. But again, there's plenty of space in the start village, which is really nice and is just a part of having those multiple wave starts. You don't have 50,000 runners all in one place at one time. I've always found it very easy to pick a spot on a lawn and just take a nap, maybe set an alarm on your watch or phone, so that way you're up and getting to the corrals when you need to. But again, don't really hesitate to get there too early because there's going to be plenty of opportunities to just lay down in the grass and rest. It's not that tight. You're not actually in the corrals when you arrive at the start village, so there is some space to spread out, warm up, and get yourself ready. Now, the last part about this tip is to go on Amazon.com, maybe a Goodwill store near you, and stock up on some layers because, again, you'd rather get there early, warm up in a lot of warm clothes, shed the layers as you need to, but not have the stress of thinking you're going to miss your start time or be late getting into the corrals. It's taken me anywhere between an hour and 30 minutes to 2 hours to get from Midtown Manhattan on the bus to Staten Island itself. So again, build that time into your morning and make sure you get yourself to the starting line on time. My fifth and final tip for New York City is don't let the elevation profile or the bridges themselves scare you ahead of time or break you during your race. I've raced this race quite a few times now, and the bridges are always going to be difficult, with the exception of the Verrazano Bridge. That's the first bridge you go over from Staten Island to Brooklyn. Your adrenaline's pumping. You honestly have a tendency to go out too fast, even though you're gaining quite a bit of elevation. So hold yourself back. That's sort of a bonus tip right out of the gate. I'm sure you've seen other channels that say the same thing. Don't go out too fast going up the Verrazano. But if you've prepared for this race, you know there's other hills, there's other bridges, and all I can say is as you're going up and things are really, really tough, especially from Queens into Manhattan, that's a very tall bridge. A lot of people maybe start to walk or just don't feel like they're going to have the energy to finish the next 10 miles of the race after that bridge. Don't let it break you. Trust me, I've done it before. You go up the bridge, you're feeling really tired, definitely slow down your pace, but keep on moving those feet. You have a long downhill after that race, and First Avenue for the initial part is fairly downhill. It's sort of rolling hills, so you're really gonna have a lot of time where your body's gonna be able to recover, and really you feel re-energized after you do get off that bridge. You go into areas of huge crowds on First Avenue, massive amounts of cheering, drummers, instruments, school bands, all kinds of things. So just don't let it break you while you're going up those bridges. Know that that downhill, in my experience, has really led to regaining that energy, getting yourself prepared for those last 10 miles, and it really isn't so bad once you get off the bridge. Just don't let that feeling while you're actually climbing uphill really ruin your race, because know that there's a downhill coming. Know that you're going to feel refreshed and energized when you get off the bridge, and just get ready for the other climbs ahead of you. So those are the tips I have on the top of my mind, trying to make them, again, focused for New York City. If you're a first-time runner, good luck, but honestly, you're going to have a blast. If you've been running marathons all your life and it's your first time in New York, you're going to have a blast. And if you've been running New York your whole life, or you've run it a few times, you know you're going to have a blast. It's an amazing day. Honestly, the Chicago Marathon that I just ran was pretty close to the energy and just overall excitement out on the course. I had a great day. I had a lot of fun out there. But New York City obviously is special to me because I've lived and worked in New York for a long time. And it's still just my number one as far as race day energy and everything going on. So you're going to enjoy it. You're going to have a blast, and just keep these tips in mind. Hopefully they're helpful to you. So that's all for the tips. I got to do a few more errands today. Like I said, this is usually a vlog channel, so if you're on your way out, take care. Again, subscribe if you want to follow along for more of my running vlog. With that, I just hope to see you all in the next video.